There is a Way Out. By Vernon Howard. This book contains excerpts from classes Vernon Howard conducted. Like many teachers, Mr. Howard speaks in parables sometimes, but his answers will quickly reach into you and strike a chord you have been longing to hear. What are these teachings all about? Imagine yourself standing in your home at night while gazing out the window through slightly parted curtains. You see a brilliant star. If you lean to either left or right of your position, you cut off sight of the star. We are teaching ourselves to stand in just the right cosmic position to see something higher than ourselves. Can you think of a more fascinating adventure? I don't know the way out. You are the way out. I don't know what that means. Know yourself and you will know. I wish to be whole, but am not sure what this means. Wholeness is the harmonious working of all the natural parts of a man. This includes thoughts, feelings, physical movements, sexual urges, action, speech, and so on. An obsession is the domination of one wild part over the other parts, as when sex dominates the mind or when impulsive emotions dictate violent action. Knowledge of all this is the beginning of self-wholeness and thus self-command. What is human life like? Like a gigantic stage performance, which a story will illustrate. A group of children often played a game of dramatics in which each portrayed a stage character. One played the role of an important person, another of a profound thinker, and so on. Then they grew up. Incredibly, they continued to play their roles, which they now took as realities. They went around acting as if they were important or profound. They felt depressed and angry when other people did not accept their roles as real. They sensed that something was wrong, but did not know what it was. We all agree on the necessity of persistent self-honesty. Where might a beginner help himself? He can ask whether he really enjoys his life, or whether he painfully endures it because he knows not what else to do. I hope my spirit is not too dark to learn. How you underestimate yourself. You always forget that while you are your own darkness, you are also your own sunshine for ending the darkness. It is true that we scorn that which we do not understand. A wind carried a man's hat deep into the woods where man had never visited. Gathering around the hat, the wild creatures tried to discover its use. A dove thought it was a nest, while a bear declared it to be a strange and huge berry. Every animal but one connected the hat his own personal needs and experiences. The exception was a wise owl who immediately identified the strange object as a hat. The owl explained that he had been in another part of the woods where creatures called men wore hats all the time. Never having heard of a man before, the creatures derided the owl and continued to be puzzled over the hat. I wish to enter your school of cosmic wisdom. Come back in 3 weeks. Here I am, 3 weeks later. Come back in 6 weeks. Here I am, 6 weeks later. You may now receive your second lesson. But what was my first? The ability to take rejection. I am caught between loyalty to my traditional beliefs and my urge to break out. Do not feel guilty about leaving the old. You owe nothing to illusions. Do not permit other slaves to keep you in chains. Your life belongs to you and you alone. But what should I accept and what should be rejected? You are never required to accept anything you have not seen or experienced for yourself. I do not fully understand what it means to be spiritually asleep or awake. To be asleep means to be the slave of anger and envy, to demand that events turn out according to personal desire, to deceive oneself and others, to suffer from guilt and shame, to take secret delight in hurting others, to live in fear. To be awake means to possess self-understanding, to have only one person within yourself, to see through the folly of worldly ambitions, to live from your real nature, to be free of all negative feelings, to be genuinely compassionate. You seem to say we must leave our own intelligence behind when coming to these classes. Do not confuse intelligence with conditioning. Why can't we bring our acquired ideas? Can fire and water mix? What should we do with an offered truth? 4 men walked through the forest of truth together. A leaf bearing a sublime message fluttered down at their feet. The scholar said he would write a long book describing the shape and color of the leaf. The man who considered himself religious claimed that this was heaven's sign for him to go forth and save others. The angry man shouted his intention to fight the truth. But the fourth man merely read the message, nodded, and silently walked on. Nothing in him wanted to use the truth for personal profit. Society has thousands of plans for helping the helpless, but not much changes. Picture a shopkeeper standing in front of his shop and shouting to passers-by about his delicious fruits and vegetables. But the shop is empty. That is society. Only the individual who has found himself has anything to give. I have a certain fear that I might lose my own individuality by accepting these higher truths. Do you have individuality, or do you merely have a fixed pattern of behavior which keeps you in conflict? I see what you mean. Sheep in a flock may have different characteristics, but they are still sheep. If you could only see it, what you will lose is what a certain part of you yearns to lose. I wish to be inspired. Then realize that inspiration is not the same as stimulation. Stimulation is temporary excitement, usually caused by exterior events. It always swings over to depression. And what is true inspiration? A glimpse of truth hidden within you. It comes at first in a brief revelation, just as a flash of lightning illuminates the scene for a split second. I don't know how to find the higher life. To win the higher, give up the lower. The home of a man stood near a beautiful lake. Also on his property was an old and unused cabin which blocked the view of the lake from the home. The man took great pride in boasting to visitors about several famous men who had possibly spent a night in the cabin. At the same time he was saddened by his inability to see the rippling waters. He finally sacrificed his boasting by tearing down the cabin, which gave him a new view. I want my life to be fun. So? Don't these studies tend to take away fun? Is your present life fun? No. Has it ever been fun? No. These studies are the only real fun on earth. I have 7 keys in my hand, but do not know which one opens the door. Try them. But what if none of them work? That is the whole story of apprehensive man. He fears that nothing exists beyond his petty ways. Courageously experiment until identifying the 6 wrong keys. The remaining key will work, but you cannot know this until eliminating the wrong keys. Why do some events make me feel happy, while others bring sadness? Because some events seem to confirm false ideas you have about life, while others seem to deny them. Is it really as simple as that? As simple as that? However, you must prove this for yourself through daily experience. For instance, notice your disturbance when other people do not agree with your claims of being a successful person. This leads to a state which is above all events. What prevents simple and natural living? Unconscious imitation. A nervous businessman was part of the madness of a large city. Wishing a calmer environment, he moved to an unspoiled island in the tropics, inhabited by a few natives. But the businessman brought his nervous mind and manners with him. Believing that his agitation was a sign of normality, the natives eagerly imitated his jumpiness. After a while, anyone who was not nervous was considered abnormal. Who are these teachings for? For whoever knows that he does not know, for whoever is secretly tired and perplexed, for whoever wants to be who he really is. Your various summaries of the human situation have been very enlightening to us. May we have another one? Whether you are aware of it or not, you have chosen a certain way of life for yourself. You must therefore reap the results of that choice. If you wish to choose another way, you are free to do so, after which different results will appear. Please tell us something about a man who is truly awakened. Outwardly he may appear quite usual, but inwardly he is a sun for a dark world. He is a man who has dared to plunge all the way into himself until seeing things as they are in reality. He knows much more about everyone than he can tell, for few people are able to take it. He exists only to those who can recognize him, to those who really want what he has to give. How does it go? A sincere student of the higher life came across a book of truth. His first reading aroused apprehension, for the book challenged his false assumptions. The second reading aroused interest, for something hard in him was beginning to melt. The third reading aroused inspiration, for he knew he had found a pure guide. The fourth reading aroused self-transformation, for printed truth blended with inner truth. That is how it goes. I wish to get to the point. There exists another state of life for you which is totally different from your present state. That is the whole point. Religion stresses the need for obedience, which has always bothered me. Maybe it associates with my past in which I had to obey tyrannical authorities. Be cheerful about it. The problem will vanish once you grasp a certain fact. You must be obedient only to yourself, to your true and fundamental nature. That is the same as obedience to God and truth. I am confused. Can you help me? Yes. Then please give me what I want. I cannot supply what you want. But you said you could help. Ask me to supply what you need. We are caught in our own trap. Of course. Imagine yourself compelled to play a new kind of football game having numerous and complicated rules. The rules are so vague and contradictory you cannot even begin to understand and follow them. But in spite of that you are ordered to play the game, and when failing to play properly, you are punished. So man is caught in his own game, a game he neither comprehends nor controls. The game can never be anything but maddening, for its rules are based on illusions and on concealed self-interest. Liberty dawns for the man who finally sees that he himself contributes to the riotous game. Something holds me back from seeking the way out, but I have no idea what it is. Two friends were disappointed with their lives. Also, they feared additional disappointment. They became interested in searching for gold in a nearby mountain, so they read many books and studied maps. But on the day they were to head for the mountain, only one of them departed from home. This adventurous man had won a fine inner victory. He had determined to not let fear of disappointment block his search for gold. All this seems to call for more energy than we may have. Pour every ounce of energy you have into your learning. Have no fear of spending it lavishly. That does not diminish energy, in fact, spending creates more. Picking a plum from a tree does not decrease the plum-producing power of that tree. Quite often we fail to benefit from the truth. Why? A cosmic fact offered to a man can be turned into one of two directions. It can be turned by the man himself into a gain or a loss. It is like tossing an apple to a hungry but confused man. Unless he recognizes the object as an apple, he is likely to let it drop to the ground. I am trying to reach Happy Hills. But you are on the road to the Valley of Despair. But my map says this is the road to Happy Hills. You need 1,000 times more courage than you have. To do what? To tear up the map. We are told to abandon self-reference. I am not sure what it means. The false self imagines it is the center of the universe. A man lost a small coin in the street, which he mentioned to a passing policeman. A short time later some workers arrived with their heavy equipment and began tearing up the street to make room for new water pipes. Looking pleased, the man thanked the policeman for his all-out assistance. That is self-reference. How did we get into this mess in the first place? A child was told by several adults to be good. Observing the behavior of the adults, he concluded that goodness consisted of envy, sarcasm, and trickery. Years later, as an adult himself, he was resentful and greatly perplexed. He wondered why a person as good as himself should attract so much unhappiness. Why is this way better than my usual way? Why is freedom better than imprisonment? I don't know the next step toward the way out. There is always a next step. Remember that. Switch from self-condemnation to self-understanding. Do not put up with a wandering mind. Become aware of mechanical reactions. Never enjoy self-pity. Do not be deceived by society's lofty but empty speeches. See that self-insight and self-change are the same thing. These are superb next steps. Find more for yourself. Why do teachers decline to answer certain questions? Often because the question has no reality in it. Hypnotized human beings wrongly assume their questions are perfectly logical and intelligent, never realizing that a faulty machine can only give out faulty products. For instance, a man might ask how to achieve worldly success. That is a wrong question. If that man became king of the world, he would still be a slave to his own negative nature. How can we work for our real benefits? Imagine yourself standing in the middle of a stream. The flowing water tends to push you downstream. If you give in to the pressure, you do what most people do, that is, you permit yourself to be carried downstream. You must be truly individualistic. You must not let a negative self or a negative society carry you away. Instead, go against the common social flow and work your way upstream. There are astonishing sights at the source of the stream. Why do these teachings emphasize individual contemplation instead of attendance at religious or philosophical meetings? Because a poor man in a bank is still a poor man. So private contemplation is the sure way to inner wealth. Yes, and in that case a man's insight is tremendous. He knows at a glance whether the religious bank has real or counterfeit money. What happens when an unaware person hears these facts for the first time? Something hits him, but he doesn't know what. He is like a desert fox struck by rain for the first time. The newness of truth is so startling he has no idea how he should react. This split second of suspended judgment is his great opportunity to change himself. Unfortunately, most hearers miss the magic moment. They instantly spill out with habitual and mechanical reactions that fill the empty palace with junk. They argue or reject or feel threatened or want to run away. Be different. Leave the mental palace empty. Watch what happens. I feel challenged on every side. Challenge your own misconceptions about life. Remain brave and steadfast when this challenge produces unexpected and uncomfortable results. But my challenges come from the outside. Never. They come from your own misconceptions. Follow my counsel and you will see that the inner and outer are the same, which frees you from challenges. How can I begin to wake up? Watch yourself in daily action. Just quietly observe whatever you do, say, think, feel. Neither condemn nor approve what you see, but simply look at it without judgment. Mentally stand back a short distance from yourself and look at your daily actions, just as if you were casually observing a stranger. One result will be the faint feeling that you are not at all the person you have taken yourself to be. This is the start of a fantastic adventure, and the beginning of a totally new life. What is my goal? To find yourself. What is my reward? To be yourself. Would it not be wise for me to remain at a distance from these ideas until I understand them better? There was once a man who declared he would not enter the water until he had learned how to swim. It seems that compromise is half our problem. A group of people were told about a rare fruit having a uniquely delicious taste. Wishing to possess this new fruit, the group visited various orchards to request it. The orchardists had no knowledge of the fruit, but still tried to make a profit by offering familiar fruits as substitutes. Most people lazily accepted the substitutes. But one energetic woman refused to compromise. She continued her search until finding the rare fruit in an obscure orchard which few people ever visited. That is our mistake, we rarely venture beyond ourselves. You say we can use discomfort for self-rescue. How? Take any audience. Ask everyone who knows the difference between right and wrong to raise his hand. You will make everyone uncomfortable. Why? Because everyone feels trapped. Every man pretends and assumes he knows the difference between right and wrong, but his feelings tell a different story. Slumbering man is so sure he understands right and wrong, truth and falsehood, that he never even thinks about it. So this jolting test can be helpful to those who want to stop suffering from themselves, for they can now question their misleading assumptions. Give us something to think about. It is really astonishing. A man will spend years studying and working on his business or employment, making it successful and efficient. Yet he will not spend 5 minutes studying the greatest business of all his own life here on earth. You teach that right sight supplies right action. That is still unclear to me. You sail your boat down the stream. You sight an underground rock. That sight makes you guide the boat right. Do you know why most people bump one rock after another? Because they are asleep in the boat, dreaming they are in command. How does spiritual elevation proceed? First you suffer from many things but do not know why. Then you suspect yourself as the cause of your troubles but are reluctant to admit it. Then you see how your unconscious cause produced the unhappy effect. Then you rise above cause and effect to the clear sky of awareness and peace. Why are we here in this class? To understand the invisible process by which our nature works. This insight enables us to let go, to permit the process to heal everything naturally. My friend left me. Can that ache be healed? When he or she left, you suffered from loneliness and humiliation. Examine the invisible process. See that it is your thought about the event that suffers, not your real nature. The authentic self cannot suffer from anything. Insight into the healing process is the very healing itself. How can we give these facts the higher value they deserve? Ask more questions, then value the answers. A teacher held a letter before his students, then asked them to estimate its value. When the students replied that the letter was of little worth, the teacher urged them to ask questions about it, which they did. The letter became valuable to the pupils when learning it had been written by America's honored poet, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Please discuss creative living. It is living with a free mind and spirit. Creativity appears of itself with the ending of wasteful practices. Life constantly renews itself, providing rich supplies every moment, but they are wasted. It is like a hungry man who takes one bite of dinner and throws the rest away. Look at all the energy wasted in petty annoyance. That energy could be used to win self-insight. Creativity appears of itself with the ending of waste. That is a new thought for me. I cannot seem to cross over to the new land. Picture a boundary line which keeps you out of a wealthy country. The boundary consists of a fence and a ditch. If the fence is removed, is the boundary as formidable as before? No. If the ditch is filled in, is the line erased completely? Yes. If you still could not cross, it would be because the boundary still exists in your mind. I inform you that the fence and ditch to the new land are no longer there. Cross over. No matter what I do, I seem to lose. As long as you crave to win, you will lose, even if you win. When you are consciously indifferent over winning or losing, you win. My complicated life overwhelms me. Do one right act. Make it as small as you like, but do one right act. You have heard of many right acts in this class. For instance, freely concede that you really do not understand yourself. Or, be aware of your resistance to new ideas. These are powerful right acts. Remember, rightness alone can overwhelm wrongness. All this is much simpler than you imagine. Just perform one right act every day. Watch what happens. What must I do? You must love your liberation more than you love to criticize. Why do we fail to possess available truth? Imagine someone eager to search some rocky hills for semi-precious stones, the garnet in particular. But he is so eager to search the area he fails to prepare his mind. He arrives at the hills without knowledge of the nature of garnets. His shovel brings up a pile of rocks and earth, which includes a valuable garnet. But unable to recognize a garnet, he walks away from it. A preliminary task of every seeker is to prepare his mind for recognition of the truth when it is unearthed. I have lost all hope. What a great accomplishment! Accomplishment. Have you ever noticed the pain in hope? What can bring about a turning point in someone? Seeing the vanity, the folly, and the uselessness of trying to cure another before curing oneself. Why should I change myself? Because at least a dozen times a day you yearn to do so. Please tell us about different kinds of teachers. A teacher who speaks to your mind can give you needed knowledge, but to acquire a wholeness which is more than knowledge you need a much higher teacher. You need a whole man who can speak to the whole man in you. You can feel the truth of his message. The first teacher describes a peach tree. The second teacher helps you to taste a peach for yourself. Why do people fail to find themselves? Because, strangely, one of the most helpful questions you can ever ask a man is the very question which frightens him the most. It is to ask him what he is really like inwardly. Few people are even willing to hear the question, to say nothing of answering it. Do you see the urgency of self-facing? I need to hear accurate directions. They can be supplied by the truth within you, for truth speaks a language which is natural to your real self. A girl of 10 was traveling with her American parents through a large foreign city. Becoming separated from her parents in the crowded streets, she lost her sense of direction. Remaining calm, she stood on a corner and listened to the speech of various passers-by. Hearing a woman speak English, the girl asked the woman for directions to the hotel, which were supplied. The girl was soon reunited with her parents. Listen for your own natural directions. Please give us help in correcting our outlooks. You view a certain situation. Ask yourself whose mental eyes see it, and you will reply that it is your mental eyes. But what is the origin of the outlook? It is your own past experiences and conditionings, both painful and pleasant. But you are not your habitual outlook any more than you are a pair of glasses you once wore. See through the eyes of truth. I am beginning to see how I cling to my opinions, even when sensing how wrong they are. Why this fierce clinging? You must realize that you are not your opinions or theories. An opinion is acquired accidentally, like picking up one leaf out of hundreds on the ground. But you gradually identify with it, that is, you think it tells you who you are. So you label yourself a member of Group X or Organization Z. Now you fear losing this mere label, for you think it means the loss of yourself. But you are not a label or an opinion. You are much more. Give us something to assist our upward climb. India has a mountain with a particular weather condition. A fog belt runs along the side of the mountain, but there is clear weather both on its top and at its base. So a climber wishing to reach the peak must enter the fog and come out on the upper side. I will give you an encouragement. Have no fear of entering psychological fog. Regardless of how it appears, it is an upward step. We need to realize so many things. There is one realization, which if attained, leads you straight to 1,000 psychic gems. You make us eager to know what it is. Realize that the truth is on your side. No, you don't realize this as yet, for you still resist its healing message. Realizing that the truth is on your side is like opening a letter while expecting bad news, but finding an invitation to a banquet. Now, what must you live by? I worry lest my human and financial supports should fail. Does a bird worry when a branch collapses under his feet? Not at all. He has wings. Develop your cosmic wings. We seem unable to take what could be ours. Like a thirsty man walking in the rain without a bucket. In this group we are learning to make buckets. Today, may we hear some good news. Anything honest and accurate is good news. Here are 4 examples. An emerald temporarily lost among pebbles is still valuable. There is something to hear which is far superior to that which our weak parts prefer to hear. You can have as much rescue as you are willing to recognize as rescue. Command yourself and you command the world. I am tired of being led astray by cunning deceivers. Then stop consenting to it. I am consenting to being deceived. Of course you are. A person accepts sweets as flowers only when he has not learned the difference between the two. Your lack of discernment leads you into nervous consent. You close your eyes and accept weeds sprayed with cheap perfume. Open your eyes and see for yourself. Please discuss the value of self-questioning. A scout for a party of Western pioneers was riding ahead of the wagons. Coming to the base of a mountain, he looked around for a pass. Seeing none, he persisted with a direct question to himself. He asked how he could get through. Before long he found the needed pass. The spiritual scout must ask himself the same question, persistently and earnestly. By asking how he can get through, he will eventually find the pass. In studying religious history, I have noticed that the real teachers were never followed by the masses, at least not for long. A real teacher is interested in the quality of his disciples, not in quantity. The larger the organization, the less truth it possesses. Increased membership means more money, more power, more dependence upon each other in supporting false ideas. A real teacher has nothing to do with all this. He wishes to show the way out to the few who want out. Once in a while I talk with people about the importance of self-knowledge. Most are procrastinators. They say they will explore the inner world as soon as a few pressing problems are solved. Procrastination is illogical from every viewpoint. It is like the man who wanted to cross the stream, so he sat on the bank to wait for all the water to run by. If we were to meet an awakened man, could we recognize his superior state? You cannot credit a man with more insight than you yourself possess. You cannot see above your own level. Only a man who knows silver can credit another man with possessing real silver. Insight alone recognizes insight. So an awakened man is never understood by sleeping men. His insight does not exist in their minds, therefore contact is impossible. You can now see why authentic teachers are mostly ignored or scorned. But all is well, for as you begin to awaken you can begin to recognize the few who offer authentic help. I was once told to believe in myself. Is that possible? Who is this self you speak about? I don't know. Then you must be careful to not quote popular sayings without understanding them. If by yourself you mean all the accumulated illusions you have about yourself, it would be dangerous to believe in that. But if you mean your true and original nature, it is a magnificent act to accept that nature. Please discuss the wise use of shock and suffering. Imagine yourself standing over the bed of a deeply sleeping friend. In a quiet voice you inform him that his dog is digging up and ruining his garden. You urge him to wake up and call off the dog. Will he hear you? Not at all. His sleep is too deep. That is man's psychic condition. He cannot even wake up when told it is for his own benefit to do so. Only a vigorous shaking will arouse him. Shock and suffering serve the purpose of awakening a sleeping man, but he must use the shock to run out into the garden, not to resent whoever wakes him up. I am afraid I am gullible. I will follow anything exciting or attractive all the way to the inevitable shock. What can I do? If 1,000 people declare that a lemon is sweet, do you believe it? No. Why not? Because I know better from my own taste. Know that you can know everything from your own taste. Please suggest a method for efficient study of these ideas. See how much attention you can give to one topic at a time. One day you might study the value of self-government. The next day you could examine the folly of living with automatic assumptions. In time you will see connections between ideas. For instance, you will see how independent thinking keeps you out of trouble in the first place. It is like studying an orange tree. By concentrating in turn on its fruit, its leaves, its roots, you see how they operate together to form the whole tree. The melody of truth sometimes seems absent. The truth is always sending out its melody. Listen. Hear. Recognize. A musician lived in some hills where a homeland army was resisting the invasion of a barbaric country. Realizing he was surrounded by both friend and foe, the musician acted to help his countrymen who lost their way during nighttime battles. Opening the windows, the musician sat at his piano and played over and over a melody familiar to his own people, but not known by the invaders. Hearing and recognizing the tune, the lost soldiers followed it all the way to the musician and to help. Some of the facts given in this class seem to threaten me with loss. I do not understand it, but I do feel as if I might lose something. You are losing something, and should shout with joy over it. You still assume it is a loss of yourself, when in fact it is a loss of the imaginary self which causes so much damage. This is a turning point for me. Yes, so make the most of it by losing the artificial self as soon as possible. Can God be known? Certainly. All you need do is to stop thinking about God. I fail to understand. God is not an idea. God as an idea produces thousands of gods, causing religious division and conflict, plus hypocrisy. But how can God be known? In this class you will learn how to think when necessary, and how to be above habitual thought. When not in thought you know God by being in oneness with the All. Have patience. You will understand. Invite understanding. I am filled with self-doubt. Do not have the slightest hesitation in doubting everything you think and feel about yourself. But doubt makes me feel uncomfortable. The road to self-certainty leads straight through the jungle of self-doubt. Stay on the road, enduring everything, which is true heroism. Watch the eyes of people who pretend to be certain. Do you want to live in that kind of self-made misery? I wish to find the way out as swiftly as possible. Then no longer demand that results conform to your desires. But this is how I have always lived. Which is why you have always been frustrated and resentful. But why shouldn't results match my desires? Why should they? It is so hard to let go. Just let go. In spite of all your fear, nothing harmful can possibly happen to you. Help us stick to our lofty aims. Imagine a party of explorers in unknown territory. They spend all their time avoiding the dangers of marshes and storms and wild animals. That is all they do, avoid dangers. Because of this they never set a goal of reaching the mountaintop from where they could view everything. That is man. He is so busy avoiding dangers to his faulty beliefs that he has no cosmic aim. Forget the so-called dangers. March toward your elevated view. Take anyone who has found the way out. What has he done that we have not done? He has risked rejection, not once or twice, but hundreds of times. This shattered his old nature, which made room for the new. And we have not risked rejection. No. You huddle fearfully in a corner. Try to see that what you really fear is the loss of false ideas about yourself. Now, in order to get out, what must you do? How can I reach the harbor? By realizing that you are completely lost at sea. But I already know that. No, you try to feel secure by imagining what the harbor looks like, or by picturing it as you would like it to be. You will reach harbor only when you have no preconceived ideas of what it looks like. We are told to place no mind above our own, but I am baffled. How can a confused self rescue the self? You can put yourself into your own hands or into your own clutches, but you must know the difference in the two. Last week you said that man was an incredible being. What did you mean? It is incredible that a man will live on earth for years without once asking why he is here. It is incredible that he will suffer terribly from himself without seeking the cause and cure. It is incredible that he will continue to build a kind of security which leaves him just as insecure as before. It is incredible that when given a rescuing fact he promptly twists it to fit his illusions. How does cosmic science explain frantic fights among humans? Mankind is like passengers on a ship pushing through a heavy fog. Fearful of the unknown ahead, the passengers fight each other for turns at the wheel, each falsely claiming to know the way to the safe harbor. After his frantic turn at the wheel, a passenger huddles back in his cabin, hoping that the next man at the wheel is not also a bluffing charlatan. Everyone makes the same mistake. He tries to substitute his personal course for the cosmic voyage. I have my own judgment. Yes, but who is going to save you from it? Give us a brief biography of spiritual success. No man ever found himself without first feeling he has been a faker all his life. However, he did not then condemn himself, but sought the real beneath the fakery. If I change but others don't, what good will it do? It will do no good except to you. Why is it so difficult to stop playing society's foolish game? Because you still desire the prizes of the game. How can I give them up? By seeing how they injure you. And how can I see this? You feel the injury every hour. See what you feel. If only a great teacher like Christ or Buddha would return to earth. How different it would be. If he commanded you to abolish anger, would you do so? Most certainly. Then why haven't you done so? These teachings seem hard on people. No, they are hard on the delusions which cause people to suffer. See the difference in this and you will not remain the kind of human being you now are. It is a strange world. We make the world what it is and then complain about it. It is even stranger than that. The worst thing you can do to some people is to take away the cause of their beloved complaints. I wish to change my world. Discover what makes your world whatever it is. Please help me do this. From the day of your birth, society imposed upon you its fixed description of the world. Society said it was a world where you must fight, where you must be liked and accepted, and so on. Through thought and speech and action you repeated this description until it hardened into the only world you knew. You were then stuck with this illusory and punishing world. Cease to repeat the description. That will make the false world fall away, to reveal the real. I sincerely seek help. Can you recommend a good book? Yes. Try this one with the green cover. Oh. Don't you have one with a blue cover? Why do I get into trouble with people? Because you expect a fox to behave like a lamb. What causes this mistake? Your inability to really see the difference between a fox and a lamb. What is my weakness? Your desperate hope that he or she might behave less like a fox and more like a lamb. Give up illusory hope and see the fact about him or her, whatever it is. Only then will you be free of the fox. Tell us about something we don't see but think we do. One of man's greatest delusions is believing that he already understands himself. He then projects this false belief to assume he understands other people. This explains human collisions and griefs, which always start with self-deception. You understand others only by first understanding yourself. Why do we fail to find healing? A large party of people suffering from dizziness appealed to a skilled physician for healing. He instructed them to dig up a certain root in the forest and make a healing brew from it. Some of the patients were too lazy to dig for the root. Others carelessly dug up the wrong root and then called the physician a faker. Others found the root, mixed it with some sugary but useless roots and made a commercial success out of the venture. Only one man obeyed instructions. He was restored to a clear mind. What kind of people are ready for this class? First, see the kind of people who are not ready. This class is not for those who believe they already have the answers, nor for those who wish to teach, rather than learn. It is not for those who still get an ego thrill from arguing and scorning, either openly or silently. This class is for those who do not know the answers and have come to the honest point in their lives where they are ready to admit it. Such people can eventually know what life is all about. In order to hear your magnificent messages, I will follow you around the world. Tomorrow we will see whether you will follow me across the street. I have come to a definite conclusion about man-made systems which claim to help the individual. They merely offer different kinds of burdens. A wild horse was lured into captivity by some merchants who seemed compassionate, for they gave the horse hay and water. But when the horse found himself with a load of bricks on his back, he shook them off and ran away. But he was soon lured by other merchants who appeared kindly but who soon loaded him with bales of rice. Finally, seeing what was happening, the horse ran away and never again associated with merchants. What is the right viewpoint to have towards someone who is obviously evil and cruel? See him as evil, also, see him as someone who suffers terribly from himself. But see him in both these ways at the same time. Seeing him only as evil may arouse a self-righteous sense of superiority in you. And seeing him just as someone who suffers from himself may activate egotistical sentimentality, which is merely a cunning projection of your own self-pity. The right viewpoint is to see him without self-reference, for this tells the whole story about him. I feel I have failed other people. Failing others and failing yourself are the same thing. Do you see what this means? It means it is useless to try to behave rightly toward others without first succeeding with yourself. You say we must see beyond ordinary life. What is meant? In Parrotland there once lived a certain parrot who succeeded in becoming an admired important parrot. One day on a trip he lost his way to stray beyond the boundaries of Parrotland. He met birds in this unknown land, but none were parrots. The new birds were courteous to the important parrot, but did not give him the applause he knew and loved so well in Parrotland. This made him so lonely and depressed he hastened back to Parrotland, where he was once more applauded. But he had caught a glimpse of something he could never forget. In order to make correction, please show us how we misuse our minds. A husband and wife were stranded in an isolated mountain cabin during heavy snows. To keep their minds off their discomfort, they played loud music all day long. Because of this, they were unable to hear the sounds of a rescue team trying to locate them. People prefer a noisy mind to a receptive one, then wonder why rescuing messages fail to come. My wife and I often have our own two-person study group at home. May we have a subject for tomorrow night? Study the following facts. The greater a man's distance from the truth, the stronger his illusory belief that he possesses the truth. Such a man is practically unreachable, for you cannot give him something he believes he already possesses. This accounts for the fanatical zeal of the deluded and the neurotic. Connect this with another fact. Awareness of not having the truth is the same as an approach to the truth. So awareness of our actual condition is the one way out. Whether we admit it or not, we feel trapped. Man feels like a prisoner condemned to inhabit a remote and lonely island. He finds a small boat which carries him a short distance out to sea. But he is then sighted and intercepted by a roving prison ship which returns him to the desolate island. His pattern of escape and capture is repeated endlessly over the years. His great chance for escape consists of full knowledge of the island, the sea, and his captors. Man is really more intelligent than his captors, but fails to exercise his superior wisdom. From this higher viewpoint, what is fame? Fame is nothing more than thousands of people thinking about a particular person. This mass thinking may see him as good or bad, but it has no relationship whatever to his actual condition, whatever it may be. Only his own thinking determines his inner state, which means he must not be deluded by public praise. From the viewpoint of God and reality, fame is meaningless. It would be valuable to be able to predict human behavior. The behavior of mechanical human beings can be predicted with perfect accuracy. Tell someone the painful truth about himself and he will resent it. Fail to carefully examine your confused ideas and a second troubled day must follow the first. Let two insecure people meet for friendship or romance in an effort to escape insecurity, and sooner or later they will quarrel. These unhappy patterns can be broken only by awareness of our mechanicalness, which opens the door to conscious action. Everyone yearns for freedom from the world's chaos. Your physical body is in the world, but your cosmic self can remain detached from it. Think of a ship's light penetrating into an ocean storm. Though in the storm, the light remains unaffected by its fury. See why? Because the light has a different nature than the storm. This is why all the great teachers reject surface changes in favor of a totally new nature. By the way, all this is not just lofty words. You have heard about a fact which can be personally experienced by anyone with enough endurance. Please give us a particular viewpoint of our problem. The problem is always our inability and unwillingness to study the problem itself. Take gloom. Do people ever see gloom as a self-defeating state, and do they ever see it as an unnecessary pain? Rarely. Not knowing what to do with gloom, people simply wander around and suffer from it. They need to be told that something can be done about gloom and every other painful feeling. They need to study esoteric science, which blows away the clouds of misunderstanding. How do labels prevent cosmic exploration? 4 travelers came to a river they wished to cross. A boat was tied to a tree, ready for their use. However, the boat had no name, which caused an argument among 3 of the travelers. Each insisted that the boat must be named, also, each demanded the right to supply the name. The 4th man listened quietly as the arguers shouted their preferences, which were ship of salvation, heavenly guide, and vessel of light. The 4th man urged them to simply cross, but they refused, so sighing at their foolishness he took the boat across the river. I would like freedom from my terrible past. You are now free from it. But I don't feel it. That is because you are thinking instead of realizing. Thought functioning as memory seems to tie you to the past, but it is an illusory rope. When thinking about the past you think about it now. Now is all there is, so right now you are free from the past. Please explain feelings of guilt. All guilt is false. It is cunning egotism, usually masquerading as repentance and humility. A guilty man takes great pride in being someone. He will continue to hurt himself and others. Only insight into this can make him a good and innocent man. I am tense in public because I don't know how I am supposed to behave. There. See. You are supposed to behave. Why on earth are you supposed to act in a pre-planned manner? You do this because you want something out of this social situation. You'll want attention or approval or sex, or maybe you want others to think you are a nicer person than you really are. Find yourself. You will then have no confusions about the way you are supposed to act. You will be yourself. What can I do about my constant state of agitation? Cease to love it. Are you saying I am fond of agitation? Yes, and you fear losing it, for agitation supplies a false feeling of aliveness, a quick thrill. It is cosmic law that you cannot retain anything you cease to love. Cease to cherish agitation and it will depart. Why do people fail in their quest for self-command? A man is first told that he lacks self-command. He is then told how to attain it through spiritual and psychological principles. At this point he usually makes an incredible mistake that blocks self-command. He mistakes intellectual knowledge about self-command for the actual experience of self-command. He imagines he possesses what he does not possess, which splits him down the middle of his psychic system. This produces the self-righteous teacher and the alcoholic advisor. Self-command appears only as knowledge of ourselves dissolves all that is not ourselves. Take two men, both having problems. One of them is working on himself and the other is not. What is the difference in the two? Both are caught in a whirlpool, but the working man knows he is caught and is actively trying to get out. The other man is so busy battling the whirlpool he has neither the intelligence nor the energy to try to get out. He is vainly trying to prove himself superior to the whirlpool, which can be done only by escaping it. I want to stop playing my dramatic and nervous role, but society insists that I remain on stage. The stage is within you, so you can walk off any time you like. But the role involves earning a living, buying and selling, relations with people. You can be involved in all of these without playing the nervous role. How? Start by trying to answer your own question. What is the point in trying to uplift the world? Everyone is equally miserable. The only difference is in the ways people disguise their anguish. Never mind everyone else. Think about your own problem. All right. I am doing that right now. See? You have already eliminated every problem in the world except your own. Now attend to yourself. But it seems selfish to attend to myself alone. Imagine a hospital having hundreds of patients. Is it selfish for one of them to get well? It is a world of weary people. When people are tired of life, they are really tired of themselves. I used to think I had dozens of problems, but now I see that I have only one problem: me. That is the dawning of a new self. I seek but never find. While searching through an old trunk, a man found a piece of paper which seemed to be a treasure map. With great elation he tried to find the treasure, but every trail led nowhere. He was about to give up when he found several other pieces of marked paper in the trunk. He then realized that the first piece of paper had been only part of the map. Now, having the whole map, he sought and found the treasure. You need a whole cosmic map, which includes knowledge, daring, persistence, and love for the truth. All my life I have tried to live by what is right while rejecting what is wrong. My life remains miserable. Where am I making a mistake? In assuming you know the difference between right and wrong. Why do I feel so inadequate when facing a crisis? Because you are not really there. A story will help. A busy businessman sent other people to represent him at business conferences. But one representative was too nervous to think clearly, another was lazy, and so on. Their misrepresentations caused the businessman endless grief. Dismissing them, he represented himself on future occasions. Likewise, you must not let acquired habits misrepresent you. Represent yourself. Let your real nature be present. It handles every challenge perfectly. Why do I get hurt and disappointed so often? Because you never take the unexpected into account. You hope favorable factors will continue as they are. This hope hardens into a fearful demand. But since life is constant change, your hopes and demands bump into the unexpected many times daily, causing hurt and disappointment. How can I correct this? See that your real nature is never apart from change, but is really one with it. In this wholeness with life there can be no hurt or disappointment. Please discuss human breakdown. When offered the choice between a large and shiny car and a smaller and plain car, a wise man examines both cars carefully. People attracted to the shiny car might find it too faulty for daily use. Man selects large and shiny illusions, then wonders why he breaks down. A breakdown can range from a minor irritation to a severe crisis. Breakdown is the puncturing of the pretense that one knows what he is doing with his life. Pursue these studies and you will come to the end of breakdowns. We have a small study group in another city. Please give me an idea to bring back to our next meeting. Stop arguing with an unwanted psychological condition and it will disappear. You mean like feeling inferior and rejected? Yes. Such feelings have no power except that which is given them by argument. Have you ever noticed how you mentally argue with an unwanted condition? Drop the argument and you drop the feeling. Try it. May we have a fundamental fact about the problems human beings have with each other. You have no problem until you make one. The problem is built out of the mechanical movements of your own mind. In its insecurity, the mind tries to make itself secure by demanding that others behave according to personal desire. But this breeds even more insecurity. This fact is beyond the perception of most people, which is why they remain afraid. With energetic inquiry, you can be different. Help us see through a popular but damaging illusion. Take the illusion of self-control. Imagine yourself standing on shore while watching a boat battle its way through a storm. You admire the way the boat zigzags through the waves as it moves toward the harbor. Later, you congratulate the captain for his skilled performance, but his reply is a surprise. He informs you he was out of control all the time, for the boat had lost its rudder. Likewise, man only appears to have self-command. Just watch his so-called control when his desires are frustrated. Control comes with self-knowledge. Describe to me the nature of this new life. Describe to me the taste of a peach. Please discuss resentment. In one sense, resentment is always self-resentment. Take someone entering a social situation. Reminding himself of the role he must play for social acceptance, he laughs at the jokes or expresses serious concern when told about someone's misfortune. His forced behavior is in sharp conflict with his natural self, which he painfully feels. Out of this comes resentment of his own weakness, which he can neither understand nor cure. We have accumulated so many uncomfortable habits. Yes, through misunderstanding. It is like the story of the boy and his socks. On Monday the boy's mother told him to put on clean socks every morning. By Thursday he couldn't get his shoes on. We are unconscious that we are unconscious. That is the whole problem. Correct. So anything experienced consciously can never be a problem, for problems exist only in unconscious action. You have difficulty walking around your home only when the lights are out. People drain and exhaust me. Never without your permission. But I don't give permission. Association is permission. But I feel lonely. Only because you do not have right self-association. Who am I? Discover who you are not. Who am I not? You are neither your self-descriptions nor the descriptions given you by others. But who am I? Someone who needs no descriptions. How can I solve the problem of personal failure? By seeing that the problem itself is false. I do not understand. There is no personal failure or success because there is no personal self to create either one. The idea of a personal self creates the idea of personal failure or success. You must see the falsity of the problem itself, and when the light flashes, what a moment! Psychologically, what happens when I feel rejected? What happens when you toss a rubber ball against a wall? It bounces back. You toss out your expectations of how other people should treat you, then get hurt when they refuse to accept you at your own value. The real cause of your rejection was your expectation. Most people fear to live without expecting agreement from others, but you must not be like most people. If you want feelings of rejection to stop bouncing back at you, dare to live with no expectations at all. I find it difficult to please someone I want to please in order to hold him. You are the slave of anyone you want to please for that reason. You cannot please anyone who needs you to please him, you can only temporarily suspend his displeasure. Try living your own life. If that does not please him, he must solve his own problem. This is not selfishness or disloyalty. It is something you must do for yourself. In seeking the way out, what must we guard against? One day a traveling charlatan visited a village to sell his cheap products. To attract a crowd and to win its approval, he stood on a box and performed several magic tricks. The magic tricks so dulled the minds of the villagers that they eagerly bought the worthless products. The next day another traveler arrived, one with products of high quality. In simple language he explained the value of his goods. But because he performed no magic tricks, no one paid attention. Sometimes I talk foolishly and impulsively, which I later regret. A man who talks from himself, from his original nature, never talks himself into trouble. We lead such limited lives. Why? An unaware man knows no other world than the self-centered world built with his thoughts and beliefs. He insists that this world is the only one with a right to exist, which breeds violence. In public he may appear to welcome the equally illusory worlds of other people, but it is just another part of his stage performance. With self-interest foremost, he simply uses other people as allies. Together they keep the mass delusion alive, and usually end up fighting each other. We must burst through the limited world of conditioned thought to enter the unlimited universal world. At the last class you said we would sooner or later see things quite clearly. What are some of them? You will see that every problem is caused by forgetting your real nature. You will see that trying to conform to frantic society is like trying to dance in rhythm with an erupting volcano. You will see that the only worthwhile life is one which seeks to understand what life is really all about. My greatest fear is that I will be unable to repair my present nature. Don't try to repair it. Get a new nature. A man once lived fearfully in a home with walls having many dangerous cracks. Not knowing what else to do, he covered the cracks with pretty pictures. He fooled a few people, but since his own mind was not deceived, he suffered great anguish. His suffering ended when he learned how to build a completely new and different home. How can we pass beyond the words to the experience? A band of travelers in ancient Persia were invited to spend the night at the mansion of a wealthy merchant. At dinner the guests were served a delicious melon. So superior was the melon's taste that every guest except one praised the merchant for it. The silent guest was silent because he was busy placing the melon seeds into his pocket. Observing this, the merchant nodded in approval, for he knew that the silent guest was also wise. I am willing to do whatever is necessary to attain real confidence. Real confidence comes into view by understanding the nature of artificial confidence. False confidence must have the support of as many people as it can get, which means that mobs and crowds have artificial confidence. False confidence hopes that the future will be better than the present, but the person with this artificiality fails to realize that his present nature must repeat itself in the future. Only a man's real self has real confidence, which is natural and effortless. I am afraid of a certain condition which has dreadful power over me. Your fear of it is its power over you, and its only power. No condition has power over you unless you give it power by fearing it. When fully realizing this, you will feel able to move mountains. I would appreciate an explanation of a recent point. You stated that psychological comfort prevents us from rising into understanding. A man gains a certain comfortable feeling by clinging to fixed ideas. But it is false comfort, for he must nervously defend his ideas against everyone with opposing ideas. So his so-called comfort prevents him from rising above mere ideas to total understanding. Do you know why nature gives seabirds longer and stronger wings than land birds? Because seabirds fly vast stretches of ocean without coming down to land. Be a seabird. Soar. How am I responsible for my own feelings? Why were you disappointed yesterday? Because a friend failed to act the way I desired. It was your thought about his action that caused the disappointment. It is your wrong thought about anything that causes disappointment or any other negative feeling. You are always responsible for your own feelings, which is not a fearful fact, but a great opportunity. Use it. Tell us something about the process of self-enlightenment. Happily, one insight leads to the next. See how uncomfortable you are with people and you see how you have unnecessarily made yourself their slave. See the need to stop pretending and you see how to end the fear of being found out. See how a wrong thought precedes a wrong action and you see how to stay out of wrong places. We need more of that kind of internal vigilance. I try to follow the footprints of men like Christ, but stumble. Don't follow anyone's footprints. That is imitation, not devotion. Nature never duplicates a path. Listen to the wisdom of men like Christ, then make your own footprints. That is precisely what every authentic teacher urges. How can I find myself? Every lost person is lost because he foolishly insists upon playing it safe. What does that mean? It means you prefer anger and resistance when truth tries to tell you how to find yourself. Anger is a foolish attempt to play it safe by defending the very ideas which cause misery. It is like a man who tries to escape captivity by hiding in a prison. Can you think of anything more ridiculous? When will we be able to grasp the rescuing rope of an awakened man? When the rope he offers is the same rope you want. I was called disloyal when I declined to follow a set of traditional beliefs offered to me. It is not disloyal to think with your own mind. The only real loyalty consists of being true to your own nature. One thing seems endless: human gullibility. An animal kingdom was once ruled by an evil fox. One day the sheep in his kingdom felt unhappy with their miserable conditions, and threatened to revolt. The fox hastily called for advice from his chief minister, a cunning crow. The fox asked how he could keep the sheep in a dazed submission. Smiling, the crow assured the fox that it was very simple. All he had to do was to continue to treat the sheep like sheep while calling them lions. I admit I am in a mental fog. What are you in a fog about? It's too foggy to tell. Very good. Only those who know they do not know can find the way out. The only way most people change is in the ways they pretend to change. I seek something truly different. I want authentic self-transformation. How badly do you want it? Enough to abandon the familiar? It is very simple. If you want something different, you cannot cling to the familiar. It is one or the other. You cling to the familiar without knowing you do, which is why awareness of yourself is essential. I need explanations. Life explains itself to everyone who asks. What should I ask? Ask what prevents self-transformation. What prevents self-transformation? A combination of an inability and a refusal to listen to anything outside of yourself. Both ability and receptivity can be developed, but first you must realize and admit your present inability and refusal to listen. At the start of my studies I learned something that helped enormously. I learned that we can go nowhere while still clinging to our fixed thinking habits. What made you aware of the need to think in a totally new way? The startling realization that I was not really going anywhere. It was shocking but enlightening. Do you know how far I traveled with my hardened mind? About as far as you can throw a stove. Can these teachings help my career? Of course. How? By preventing you from being a slave to it. No doubt it is wrong to become dependent upon a teacher. How can this error be avoided? An authentic teacher makes self-reliance a part of his program. A man who really knows is like one of those powerful ships that patrol icy seas. Having immense strength in its prow, the ship breaks through an ice field, making a trail of open water for other ships to follow. But there is something else. A man of real knowledge does not aim to make followers out of listeners. He shows them how to become icebreakers themselves. I don't know what to do with my life. Because you wander away from a supreme fact of life. What fact? The fact that life is the way you see it. You now see life as chaotic because you are your own world of chaos. But there is an inspiring way to see life. How does this help me know what to do with my life? When inspired, you have nothing to do but live lightly. You are able to tell us why we behave as we do, so please explain something. Yesterday I accused someone of doing something wrong, then was ashamed when discovering he was innocent. Why was I so eager to accuse him? Because you acted with a mechanical desire to get an emotional thrill from the incident. That is the only behavior pattern of which you are presently capable. How can mechanicalness be replaced with conscious behavior? Be aware of your desire for a thrill and then have the sense to drop it. Thrills cost more than you can afford. Above the thrill of accusing another is self-command. Several of us discussed a point from yesterday's class. You spoke of a definite change that eventually takes place after diligent investigation. Could you illustrate this certain change? It is like a hiker standing on a low hill in the desert, while sighting a town in the distance. While realizing you have not as yet arrived, you know the right direction to take. What do I fear? You fear yourself. I never thought of it like that. Please expand the idea. You fear your wild impulsiveness, fear that others will see through you, fear your inability to behave correctly. All that is true. And I can change. Yes, by becoming a quiet but alert listener. If only we could return to inner simplicity. There is so little simplicity in this world, its rare appearance can hardly be recognized. People in the habit of clawing their way through the jungle take a clear section as something unnatural and undesirable. There is only one way to start the return to simplicity, which is to clearly see your punishment at the hands of complexity. I feel like someone standing at the door of a dark room. I know I must enter, but am apprehensive. The dark room you fear exists within yourself and nowhere else. See how this simplifies everything? The room is at hand, you can enter at once. You need not chase around in vain anymore. I will show you what to do. Bravely step into the dark room without having a light in your hand. Now stay there, no matter how nervous you are. Stay there long enough and the light will come on of itself. The light is your new understanding. How can I find the way? Really want it. That is all. Remember, I said to really want it. I would like to sit down with you for some profitable talk. Everything depends upon your definition of profitable talk. I would like to talk about ways to prevent someone from leaving me. It would be far more profitable to discuss why you are a slave to that person. I know I am my own problem, but it seems that nothing can set me free from myself. I want you to remember one thing. You have an inner observer which can calmly stand aside from life's conflicts instead of being involved in them. Please repeat that in your own words. I can stand outside myself and simply watch what happens, like a neutral referee at a football game. Set yourself free by remembering and practicing that. Tell us about something we need for the self-adventure. In Peru there is a rocky cliff which at first glance reveals nothing unusual. But wait patiently until the afternoon sun strikes the cliff in a certain way. You will then see the perfect outline of a five-pointed star. In self-adventuring, have more patience while letting the unseen reveal itself. What is the difference between artificiality and reality? You must wearily support artificiality, while reality supports you. I seem to lack energy for the inner adventure. Picture the underground water system of a town. Water pipes travel in different directions. Some provide drinking water, others serve a factory, some keep the town's trees green. Man's energies are like that. They have full power to serve every human need, but man lacks practical knowledge about them. Some energies are used wrongly, as when annoyance takes the place of understanding. Other energies do not have enough pressure to do their work, as when we fail to go all out for the inner adventure. I worry constantly. What is the cause and cure? Worry is simply a lack of consciousness and understanding. It exists only on a lower level of the mind. A passenger worriedly paced the deck of a ship caught in a fog. As the captain approached, the passenger voiced his fear of a collision with another ship. Nodding in understanding, the captain invited the passenger to accompany him to the bridge. Doing so, the passenger found himself above the fog's level, where vision was clear. Raise your level of understanding. Where is the fog and where is the worry? Nowhere. Please illustrate the connection between mind and body. Have you ever noticed how the body obeys the thought? Think of food and the body heads for the refrigerator. Think of entertainment and the legs move toward the television set. With enough watchfulness you can see how thoughts do indeed place the physical body wherever it finds itself, for either benefit or harm. This insight arouses powerful motivation for thinking only constructive thoughts. Why do events happen to us as they do? They happen because of your psychological location, that is, your high or low level of consciousness. Imagine a man dwelling in the desert. Wherever he walks he finds that sand gets into his clothes. He wisely realizes that the reason for this is his geographical location. If he wants to get rid of the uncomfortable sand he must move out of the desert. Anyone wanting different events, higher events, must move out of his psychological desert. Everything depends upon how a certain circumstance turns out. Everything depends upon the way your mind works. Help us to not be afraid. You are afraid only because you react to daily life with the memories of former fears. The pure present moment has no fear in it. So our task is to see how mere memories rush in to ruin the liberty in the present moment. Yes. This requires constant watchfulness of your responses. You will then learn how to stand free in the fearless present moment, which does not reside in time, and which is free of past and future. Today I made one of those interesting discoveries you said we would make. I noticed how right thought creates calm feeling. When the wind stops blowing, the lake stops rippling. I am overwhelmed by floods of thoughts. There is a silent space between two thoughts. Find it and remain there for a while. But without thought I won't know who I am. There will be a nothingness. Exactly. But this is terrifying. Not at all. It is fulfillment at last. Give us wisdom for today. Live as if every thought, good or bad, open or secret, comes back to you. It does. Since the uncovering of illusions is a major aim of ours, please discuss one of them. Suppose a man's television set breaks down. Knowing that he knows nothing about repair, he either teaches himself or finds an expert repairman. But does he proceed as intelligently when he breaks down? Rarely. Without understanding even his smallest moods and motives, he deceives himself into thinking he knows just how to make things right. The fact that his repair work never really repairs anything never occurs to him. So remember, one of man's most harmful illusions is the illusion that he already understands himself. I want to change my life, but everything seems against it. The idea of everything being against self-change is only an idea. Get rid of the idea and then see whether anything is against self-change. Peace of mind is such an elusive prize. There is only one way to be totally at ease in every condition of life. I will repeat that in different words. There is a certain state of mind which gives you complete command of everything that happens to you. You make us eager to know what it is. It is a state of mind in which you never need to prove you are right. What should I do about my mental confusion? Neither fear nor avoid confusion. People try to avoid confusion by clinging to adopted attitudes and positions. They do this in a frantic effort to feel secure, to feel right. But not only does it perpetuate confusion, but it arouses all sorts of weird and harmful actions. Since their rightness is illusory, such people easily crack up. Confusion is ended by voluntarily dropping conditioned ideas about life. You then live within a reality which is perfectly clear and competent. How can I fight an unhappy thought? Don't fight. Drop it at once. How can I drop it? By dropping it. How can I think with my own mind? I mean really do so. To begin to think for yourself requires a certain act of courage. You must endure the emptiness of not thinking from your usual ideas and opinions. Make an experiment. The next time you are about to voice an opinion, stop abruptly. You will feel a small discomfort which you will want to relieve by going ahead with your opinion. But do not ease the tension. Stick with it. At this point you will feel something never felt before, which is the awakening of your real mind. It is like the feeling you have when first touching an object lost in the dark. How can I handle a forthcoming crisis? If there is no crisis in your mind, there is no crisis. All of us sense that when the mind is right, so is everything else. I grasp a few ideas, but the whole meaning escapes me. Name an ingredient of bread. Flour. Name another. Salt. Name another. Water. When properly combined, what is the whole and final product? Bread. Combine these ideas and the whole meaning takes form. Give us a point for pondering until the next meeting. The alternation between sunshine and shadow is the alternation of your own mind. Exactly what is a delusion? It is a mental mix-up which sees everything backward. What appears good to the deluded man is seen as bad by the awakened man. What seems bad to the sleeping man is seen as good by the enlightened person. Details, please. The ordinary man loves flattery, which is injurious because it separates him from his real nature. The harmful results of flattery are known only to the awakened man who has freed himself of it. These teachings reject intellectualism, but what if all the best minds in the world could get together? Surely they could supply profound advice for solving our problems. When 1,000 people with superb eyesight see a mirage, it is still a mirage. Today I noticed envy in myself. Good. Yesterday I became aware of resentment. Excellent. Excellent. Of course. You are ending self-deception by becoming aware of your actual condition. But I seem to be getting worse. No, no, no. Honest awareness of your actual condition is the first step toward liberation from negative traits. I have read hundreds of authoritative books and attended dozens of stimulating lectures. I now know what the great and famous teachers think. Yes, but what do you think? Last week we discussed the difference between hearing the words and having the insight. Please give us a practical project here. All hurt is self-hurt. Those are the words. Now walk toward the insight. When will we fully understand this? When heart knows what memory hears. What is a characteristic of a whole and healthy mind? The ability to see the whole picture at once. Most people see only small parts, like looking at a famous painting which is mostly covered by a cloth. A healthy mind not only sees the whole painting but sees it instantaneously, as when the cloth is suddenly pulled off the painting. How does wrong use of the mind make us unhappy? Take any man. Year after year his mind flows along in a fixed stream. This customary flow includes two limiting and harmful assumptions. First, the man believes there is no way to think except his own. Secondly, he insists that others should think as he does, though this is never publicly admitted. You can see how his compulsive behavior and his angry demands make him unhappy. He must cease to be a limited stream to join the whole sea. How can I think peacefully toward both myself and others? By learning the nature of thought itself. In what specific way? Observe how every thought has an opposite. You want success, but fear failure. You feel elated, then depressed. You are arrogant one moment and cringing the next. This is conflict. Rise above thinking in opposites to the lofty level of mental wholeness. This is peace of mind. Please show us how to think with maximum benefit. End mental meandering. 100 people applied for admission to a school of truth. They were told to go home and remain there until a messenger arrived who would inform them of time and place of the first class. On the first day of school, only 3 people entered. The rest had been absent when the messenger arrived, out making money or amusing themselves. Your mind can receive valuable messages every minute, but you must be home to yourself. You say we must replace human beliefs with cosmic facts, but what kind of a world will it be without beliefs? What kind of a world is it with beliefs? How can we expand our thinking? By becoming aware of limited thinking. A visitor was inside a famous temple in Japan when its bell began to ring. The visitor asked the bell ringer why the bell was sounding at this particular hour. The bell ringer said it was because he was pulling on the rope. Limited thinking exists when one is able to see only visible causes. Last week in class you said that man lives from imitation intelligence. What did you mean? A donkey desired to be as intelligent as his owner, so he decided to imitate his owner's ways. For 3 months the donkey stared at open books, just as he had seen his owner do. At the end of this time he prided himself on being highly intelligent. But he could never understand why he still had to bear burdens on his back. I wish to escape my unhappy mind. Can you escape your own body? No. Neither can you escape your own mind. Then my case is hopeless. Not at all. The mind cannot be escaped, but it can be transformed. How? Cease to take a peculiar pleasure in thinking unhappy thoughts. I am bothered by what other people think of me. You have never been bothered by that. It is your thoughts about their thoughts that bother you. Now you know how to stop feeling bothered. Please help us challenge the chain. A lion was captured. Around his neck was placed a chain which was tied to an iron stake. For a while the lion submitted to captivity by accepting his daily food and never challenging the chain. But one day his lion nature rebelled at confinement, so he tugged mightily on the chain and stake. Observing this, his captors tried both promises and threats in an attempt to end the rebellion. But the lion refused to be fooled any longer. He broke the chain and escaped back to his natural ways. I am dreadfully concerned with my life. The fact is you have never ever been concerned with your life. You are concerned with what you imagine is your life. You must see the difference in the two. Worry over your physical appearance is imaginary life, as is concern with what others think of you. If I drop imaginary life, what is left? You. The persistence of mental suffering baffles me. How can mental pain come to an end? Stop glorifying suffering. It has no glory, not an ounce. Drop the secret and foolish self-glory in suffering and you will see it fall off like a dropped hat. Several times you have mentioned a false feeling of life. Since some of us are new to these classes, may we have an explanation of this phrase? A false feeling of life is a damaging substitute for true life. One lives in fiery thrills instead of from calm realities. It is as if an exploding volcano felt as alive as a human being. Take argument. If you let someone win every point in an argument he loses interest in the battle, for his excitement vanishes. If you wish to find true life, steadily reduce and finally eliminate false feelings of life. I have worked on myself according to these principles, but self-transformation eludes me. Work patiently on. A medical scientist can peer into a microscope to observe just how a medicine works upon and heals a human illness. He can actually see the change take place. Your inner transformation will become just as observable as you permit spiritual medicine to do what it is capable of doing. Maybe it is wrong, but I believe in my own weakness. Why? Truth doesn't believe in it. What is the fundamental fear of man? The fear that he does not exist as the kind of person he imagines he is. Suspecting that he is not this illusory person, he lives in anxiety and hostility, not knowing what else to do. How long must I suffer like this? For as long as you prefer to play the role of a real person instead of finding out how to be one. The blunders we make along the way. Be like the man climbing the hill who took 3 steps upward to slide back 1. What is wrong with that? You are still climbing. How is real happiness attained? By freeing yourself of thoughts about life. You have thoughts as to how life should unfold, how people should treat you, how happiness can be won. These are your thoughts about life. But life cannot and will not obey your demanding thoughts, which makes you unhappy. But what can I do except think about life? You can see life. How is this seeing attained? By wanting seeing more than you want your demands upon life. I would be happy if I could just get what I want. How many times in the past have you obtained what you wanted? Many times. Are you happy? Why does a person fail to hear his natural inner harmony? Because he stands too close to himself. Imagine yourself standing in the bell tower of a great cathedral in Europe. The bell rings, but you cannot hear its rich tones. You are too close, too confined. To hear and enjoy, stand at a distance. Please discuss our many complaints. One of the most difficult facts for a complainer to grasp is his own involvement in the very game he complains so much about. He is a fox who insists he is a lamb. If he were not a part of the game, he would not suffer from it. A complainer who sees this will emerge from suffering. I fear what may happen to me. Who is this person with so many fears? Pardon. What you call yourself is merely a hardened cluster of memories, labels, imaginations, vanities and identifications. You fear the ending of this illusory self, which is a false fear. Let go of what you call yourself and be fearless. Sometimes it seems that I am hopelessly lost. No, you are merely wandering. When absent from home, is your home lost? We want the smooth way. A smooth way consists of nothing but ceasing to be a problem to yourself. Some of you will resist this, for you still think from that part of the mind which wants to blame others for your own troubles. The smooth way appears with the willingness to listen to what you must learn. What must we learn? To cease to be a problem to yourself. Please discuss an error we must correct. A man mistakes his personal viewpoint of the world as the only world. This separates him from both himself and from the whole world. Imagine a motorist who has driven 5 miles beyond a bridge. Ask him where the bridge is and he will say it is 5 miles in back of him. But a second motorist going in the same direction is within 5 miles of reaching the bridge. He will state that the bridge is 5 miles ahead. So where is the bridge? Obviously it is in each man's personal viewpoint. Try to see that a personal viewpoint is not the only world. May we hear more about self-slavery? What is an example? Pretending to be interested in something in which one has no real interest whatever. Impelled by self-interest, a man joins a club or cause which builds a flattering self-image of being a friendly and helpful member. But the man's secret despair knows better. This is one of the worst kinds of self-slavery, for it is so deeply hidden from whoever suffers from it. You once remarked that we never see all the gold in a simple lesson. What would be one such lesson? Don't live as most people live. There is hidden gold in this short sentence. Among other things, it means you cannot admire successful but lost people, and it means you cannot label your borrowed ideas as original thinking. What is the cause of and the cure for self-conflict? A troubled man once came to a wrong conclusion. He concluded that the only way to go through life was to wear various masks. So he constructed clever masks to make him appear to be what he was not, which included a mask of happiness and a mask of confidence. After a while, forgetting that they were mere masks after all, he began to believe he was actually happy and confident. This produced terrible self-conflict. Only when realizing what he was doing to himself did he put away both the masks and the conflict. What is a sign of cosmic maturity? The ability to be content when nothing exciting is happening. I am bewildered and dismayed at what I attract into my life. This includes regretted actions and unwanted people. Why do I attract what I don't crave? You attract what you really crave, not what you say you crave. But since this is unconscious, you don't accept it. I would like to stop attracting what I do. Then give up the false pleasure of your present cravings. A particular happening bothers me constantly. Ask to whom it is happening. Do this. Inquire exactly who is the person bothered by the event. Carry the inquiry far enough and you will see that something is happening but not to you. In reality, you are not the feeling of bodhiration, but you take it as you, and so suffer from it. Deep knowledge of your true nature prevents happenings from becoming conflicts. This is a free state of oneness with everything. How can we reach the other shore? Two butterflies lived in a wild and dangerous region. One morning, when flying together, they came to a wide river. On the other side they could glimpse a land of peace and beauty. The first butterfly spoke up with several reasons why they should not fly over to the other shore. He said that the flight would be difficult, and that their miserable but familiar land was preferable to the new but unknown. The other butterfly said he had one strong reason for wanting to make the flight: he was thoroughly tired of living in a land of misery. With that declaration, he flew over to the other shore. Please give us an incentive for finding the way out for ourselves, instead of depending upon authoritative personalities. A famous lecturer stood on the stage of a huge auditorium which was jammed with eager listeners. The lecturer assured them there was no need for failure, then supplied 3 easy rules for overcoming failure. He then told his audience that feelings of depression were completely unnecessary, then recited 7 dynamic steps for victory over depression. As the lecture ended, the famous man was applauded enthusiastically. While driving home, the famous lecturer suddenly felt like a failure, which depressed him. I am unhappy because life has denied me what I want. You are unhappy because of different causes than you imagine. Really? You are unhappy because you are separated from yourself, not because you lack worldly success. You are anxious because you take the artificial as the real, not because your dreams did not come true. Remember always that you are unhappy for a different reason than you imagine. That will guide you all the way out. We are urged to question our habitual assumptions toward life. Obviously, that is a right move, but how can we do it? You live by your own ideas as to what will attract happiness. Have your own ideas given you happiness? You live by your own choices as to what will make you feel secure. Have your choices provided security? You live by your own ambitions as to what will give meaning to your life. Have your ambitions made your life meaningful? I try to make events conform to my desires, but end up frustrated. Try building a fence around the wind. When you learn what it means to blend with events, you will not know frustration. What does it mean to blend with events? It means to no longer live from a separate self which is apart from events. I think I will be happy when something turns out as I wish. If you are happy because of something, you have artificial happiness which can vanish the next minute. A permanently happy person is one who is happy without knowing why. Now I will give you a work project. See how this connects with the virtue of psychological independence. Why can't I make it? Because you accept as a fact something which is not a fact. You accept your present life as all there is for you. Wrong. A small boy was asked his name. He said it was Tommy. No. He had heard no so many times he had accepted it as part of himself. I now inform you that you can change yourself, which is the same as changing your life. Accept that information. I now see how dry intellectualism blocks self-renewal. No rain had fallen in a certain country for many months. The anxious officials consulted a wise man who told them to set out many buckets, for it would soon rain. But the officials remained actionless, arguing among themselves. Some insisted upon wooden buckets set out by men, while others demanded metal buckets to be set out by women. Consequently, the rain came and departed, leaving the country as dry as before. Now, you may imagine that they learned from this experience. Not at all. They did the same thing over and over and over. Why am I elated one day and depressed the next? Because it is the nature of mechanical thought to swing back and forth in opposites. This includes elation and depression, like and dislike, attack and retreat. You want the elation without the depression, which is impossible, for both are sides of the same coin. In this class you will understand the falsity of both elation and depression, which lifts you above mechanical thought. Happiness resides on this higher level. I fear I may miss out on something life has to offer. The fear of missing out is just another brick on the back. People with this burden really fear the ending of emotional excitement. To keep the thrill going, they incite one emotional incident after another. That produces the fear of missing out. This is something an awakened man or woman never suffers from. Besides, a cosmically complete person never misses out on anything, any more than a sparrow misses the sky he flies through. We want to make it. It has been estimated that a bee must visit 50,000 flowers to collect 1 pound of honey. Have that kind of devotion to the cause and you will make it. Please speak frankly with us tonight. You cannot understand a condition and be free of it as long as you are in despair over it. Where despair rules, insight is absent. Liberty appears with a willingness to drop the despair of which you are so fond. Oh, yes, you love your despair for it makes you the star of your own little dramatic show. What I have just told you is not harsh and unfriendly. It is the beautiful truth that makes you free. I wish to read a book of authentic guidance. How will you recognize its authenticity when seeing it? I don't know. I will tell you what to do. By earnest self-exploration, develop one small authentic part within yourself. Then, when that authentic part comes across an authentic book, there will be a meeting of two conscious items. Then, a bell of understanding will ring in your mind. I still don't see how I can get through my day without conflict. Like a kite. A kite soars and dips merrily because its nature does not oppose the changing winds. Being one with the entire sky, it has no opposition and therefore no conflict. But we live in a warring world. You are your own world. Why should I walk the path? Because nothing else in life is worthwhile. But I do not know this. Something within you knows it. I don't know what to do with my life. Stop interfering with it. In what way? You tend a growing tree, but do you interfere with its natural growth? No. Then stop interfering with your natural growth, for that makes you ask your original question. Stop seeking to be the tallest or most attractive tree. Stop interfering with what is right for your life. Whenever I see opposing sides on any social or political issue, I never know which side to take. There is something far greater for you to know. It is the existence of a third position which takes no sides at all, for it is above human conflict. It is like standing on a hilltop and watching two battling armies. Such an observer does not contribute to the wounding of others. You say it is good and necessary to break up our hardened thinking habits. Why? Why does a farmer break up the ground before planting seeds? I cringe in despair over the flood of questions for which I have no answers. There is one wonder-working question you should ask. Tell me of it. Ask what is separating you from yourself. Answer that question, then see whether you have any other questions. What causes exciting but silly beliefs? A combination of ignorance and a wish to be involved in sensational events. On a very dark night, a rancher was making a minor repair on the roof of his barn. He dropped his lighted flashlight, which was caught by his son on the ground, who tossed it back up. The incident was witnessed at a distance by a passing traveler. From that day forward, the traveler solemnly told people that he had witnessed a miracle. He had, he said, actually seen a man jump from a barn roof to the ground and promptly jump back up. I feel like I am living on a ladder that other people are always shaking. Have you ever asked yourself why you are climbing that ladder in the first place? I wish to be one with myself. You are already one with yourself, however, this is hidden from you by wrong thoughts. What wrong thoughts? Thoughts of being either successful or unsuccessful, thoughts of being good or bad, intelligent or stupid. Oneness is your natural state, but it can be seen only by rising above self-labeling thoughts. You say that men and women live in hazardous illusions about themselves. After thinking it over, I don't think I live in illusion about myself. That is exactly what makes it so hazardous. It is obvious that something higher than society must supply the cure for society. Society is unable to recognize its own illness except when it appears in an extreme and visible form, as with an obviously disturbed person who wanders out into a busy street. But an awakened man sees through so-called normal people, being fully aware of their buried terrors and compulsions. But society cuts itself off from his help by a second non-recognition, its inability to recognize his profound insight. What wrong inner states do beginners often have? They yearn to ask personal questions about the private life of the teacher, but dare not. They play the foolish game of ego competition with the teacher, not realizing that he is not playing the game at all. They expect clever jokes and dazzling dramatics from the teacher, turning sour and critical when he gives them truth instead. Before a beginner can become a learner, all such immaturity must go. Why is my way so hard? Because you are hard. What does that mean? It means that you and your way are the same thing. Change yourself and you change your way. There is no other way. Daily life is so dull. Try finding yourself. Nothing is more fascinating. Is it really possible to find my own way out? It becomes possible the moment you suspect you have been misled by other people. By making up a story of hidden treasure, some cunning robbers persuaded some strangers to enter a deep cave. The thieves intended to rob and abandon the strangers. But one stranger became suspicious, so he quietly marked the wall of the cave as they passed from one dark branch to another. In a moment when the robbers were inattentive, the wise stranger slipped away and followed his own marks all the way out of the cave. I would like to talk with more people about this new way, but it is difficult to communicate with them. You always come back to the same problem. You cannot tell a man who does not know that he does not know. You cannot even tell him that he does not know that he does not know. He cannot hear you. Suppose a mountain rabbit described snowy peaks to a desert rabbit. Could the desert rabbit comprehend? Still, there is a way out, for some have found it. Yes, those who decline to accept the false pleasure of emotional agitation. From this higher viewpoint, what is a wrong position? Any position requiring allies is a wrong position, if those allies are friends and relatives. The man who knows from himself needs no allies at all. By the way, such a truly independent man is free from quarrels, for allies always end up battling each other. Sometimes I feel that the task is too difficult. Why do you permit a mere word to stand in your way? Forget the word difficult and take your next step. We talk a lot about human harmony, but where is it? The conductor of a symphony orchestra instructed his musicians to prepare to play a certain composition. Accordingly, the musicians placed the needed music on their stands. At the signal from the director, the orchestra played a horrible blast, shocking to ears. What went wrong? Each musician played his own preferred selection. While pretending to be part of the harmonious whole, each man actually played his secret and self-centered preference. That is why talk about human harmony is just talk. And that is why mankind suffers from shocking blasts. Somewhere along the line I need to make a breakthrough. Understand what I am about to tell you and there will be a major breakthrough. You are never made unhappy by a result that goes contrary to what you wanted. You are made unhappy by your very love of being negative over the result. You love and value the false feeling of life supplied by frustration. If you did not love feelings of frustration, you would never be frustrated by anything. How can we start to possess qualities that count? There is only one right start. We must stop attributing qualities to ourselves and to others which do not in fact exist. Calling an artificial pearl a real pearl prevents knowledge of the real gem. I am bored. I want another life. No, you don't want another life, you want a new toy. When you really want another life, bring me your toys. And by the way, a toy can range from a weekend activity to governing an empire. Please discuss the need for earnest attention. At one of our national parks there is a building which supplies information for visitors. When the building is closed, visitors can press a button and hear a recorded message which describes the natural wonders of the region. I once saw some playful children push the button and run away. Doesn't that remind you of most human beings? They really don't want to listen to truth, they just want to play around. I am what I am. Why am I punished for it? No, no. You are punished by it. Then why am I punished by it? No, no. The question is, why do you prefer to remain what you are? What is the aim of an awakened man? To call frightened people out of hiding. A cruel warrior once led his savage troops in an invasion of a weak nation. The terrified citizens fled to caves in distant mountains. They became so accustomed to cave life that they refused to return home, even when assured that it was safe to do so, for the warrior had departed. An awakened man calls at mental caves, urging everyone to come out of hiding and return home. Unfortunately, his good news is ignored by many people. If only people would love each other more. Every time society uses the word love, it flatters and deceives itself into thinking it knows the meaning of love. What stands in the way of love? Society's substitute of the word for the virtue. I need something, but do not know what. What you need are new experiences. What is a new experience? How will you react the next time you are blamed for something? I know and you know how you will react, for you are always the same. You will react with anxiety, defensiveness, hostility. A new experience would be to take the blame without feeling disturbed, without a tense ego reaction. What is the value of this? What is the value of being without anxiety and hostility? Please guide us on the matter of seeking help. While help can certainly come from those who have found the way out for themselves, you must also remember the foremost fact about help. There is no final help outside your own understanding, and no need for any, for your recovered understanding is supreme. May we have a thought to consider on the way home. One thing above all prevents the entrance of the remedy. It is the wish to hear the pleasing instead of the healing. If only our psychic hearing were better. In earlier days of sailing, a large fleet of cargo ships was traveling together across the South Pacific. A sudden storm caught the fleet, damaging and scattering the ships. One of the vessels managed to locate and limp into the harbor of an island, where repairs could be made. The captain of the safe ship sent a radio message to the ships still dazed by the storm. He urged them to join him in the harbor. But only those ships having a radio receiver could hear the message and accept the invitation. Please suggest a way to use these principles for practical help in daily affairs. When a difficulty arises, instantly remember one of the guides learned in class. When feeling depressed, remember that depression is simply a mental movie which can be broken off with consciousness. When fearful of losing something, remember that your real nature cannot suffer any kind of loss. Remember. Is there really a way out? Yes. Can you show it to me? Yes. What must I do? Listen patiently to facts you don't want to hear. One part of us wants self-change, but another part resists. I will tell you what man is like. He is like a small child who glimpses several children at play on the other side of a high bridge. The child gazes longingly over, wishing to join the happy activities. But at the same time that he sees the other side, he also sees the bridge which he fears to cross. Do you know what a true teacher is? He is someone who has crossed the bridge himself. He can therefore assure you that in spite of all your fears it is perfectly safe to cross the bridge. For the first time I am quite aware of how we misinterpret the approach of healing facts. When approaching birds with breadcrumbs they fly away in alarm, quite sure you mean to harm them. People are no different. May we hear more about an idea you mentioned briefly yesterday? You spoke of a self-miracle. You can make yourself a miracle. This is not said to make you excited or make you feel good. It is said because it is a fact. I know it is a fact. You can know it from your own personal experience. A self-miracle happens when you face what you don't want to face so long and so bravely that the very facing changes the kind of human being you are. Make yourself a miracle. What is the difference between a man who is not rescuing himself and one who is? The lost man calls his day successful when no one has seen through his staged roles and his pretenses. The self-rescuing man calls the day successful when he has detected and dropped one of his enslaving roles. We are urged to be more daring toward our liberation. Please show us how. Dare to be without something to do. People would be shocked to see how many activities they invent out of fear of having nothing to do. And probably dismayed at the worthlessness of most of them. But what is behind our fear of inactivity? Exciting but useless activities are similar to certain kinds of birds which shriek and leap in an attempt to lead an enemy away from the nest. Man's artificial movements are his attempts to hide his pretenses of being wise and important. I now see how we distract ourselves from our own good. An ill man was walking down the street when he came to a shop selling just the medicine he needed. Refusing to enter the shop, he continued down the street. He finally came to a toy shop which he entered to make several purchases. See the point? Those who refuse the medicine accept the toys. Why do I have painful experiences again and again? Because your memory is too short. You put the same hazardous causes into motion while dreaming that the results will be different. They won't. What are these hazardous causes? Your inner characteristics, the ones you keep hidden from yourself and others. How can we escape the self-storm? By realizing fully that you are caught in it. Imagine a man sleeping under a blanket in the woods. A thundering storm suddenly crashes over his head. If sensible, he will jump up and race out of the woods. But how can we feel this urgency? One part of you feels it all day long, as when caught in gloom and irritation. But another part hides under the blanket and pretends there is no storm. Our study group meets next Saturday. May we have an idea for discussion? You always get what you ask for you are what you ask for. In the psychological world there is no division between what you are and what you get. A donkey gets the experiences of a donkey because it is a donkey. A lion gets the experiences of a lion because it is a lion. Why do I do what I do? You do what you do because you do it. That is all. Please explain. At the exact moment that you do something, you and your motive are the same thing. There is no you and a motive. At that precise moment you are your motive. This is quite deep, so I will summarize for now. You can change what you do only by dropping the illusion of having a separate self which can change what you do. Change occurs only in the absence of the imaginary self. Teach us something we need to know. I will give you a liberating lesson which at first you may take as unpleasant nonsense. We are listening. You think that the world revolves around you. Yes, each of you actually believes himself to be the center of everything on earth. And you think it all day long. Why is this a liberating lesson? Stop thinking it and see for yourself. Do you believe in God? You have used the word God, so we must see what you mean by it. Everyone has a different explanation. So when you say God, what do you mean? Now that you ask, it is difficult to answer. The word is not the thing. The word apple is not an apple. Go beyond the word to personal experience, then you will understand God. Unfortunately, people seem to arrange their lives according to pleasures and preferences, not according to realities. Yes, and then are so indignant when things go wrong. A boy asked a young friend to draw a map of some woods with which the friend was acquainted. When using the map a day later, the boy became temporarily lost in the woods. The cause was an incorrect map. A stream flowed where a path was indicated, and thick bushes covered ground where a field was supposed to be. When the boy questioned his friend about it, the friend replied that he had drawn the woods the way he wanted them to be, not as they were. Does that remind you of some people? These facts are both enchanting and baffling. Please explain a baffling one. You say that anyone can free himself of feeling attacked and injured. How? Attack the air with a stick. Nothing happens because the air is of a different nature than the stick. Dissolve your present nature. There is no one left to feel hurt. Please tell us about worship. False worship exists where there is division, that is, where there is a worshipper and whoever is worshipped. This worship enables the worshipper to cling to his illusion of having an ego apart from the whole. He wrongly believes there is a self and the object of his worship. This is both vanity and idolatry, for the worshipper is simply praising his own personal ideas about the object of his worship. In true worship, there is only oneness, so even the word worship has no significance. One of the strongest impressions I ever received in this class occurred the night you spoke about artificial duties. Just hearing about the way we needlessly burden ourselves inspired a feeling of release. A careless man let himself be hypnotized into believing it was necessary to carry a heavy rock on his back during the day. He believed that failure to carry the rock would make him a guilty or lazy person. So he dutifully and resentfully placed the rock on his back every morning before leaving home. So living from an imaginary self creates imaginary obligations. We are urged over and over to drop acquired opinions. But this would leave us without a steering wheel. Where has your steering wheel taken you up to now? But what would I be without strong opinions? A real person. You mistake opinions for facts without realizing you are doing so. The only way to obtain liberating facts is to first drop enslaving opinions. What prevents us from learning from a man who knows? Wrong attitudes toward him. A seaman built a small boat for himself, which was the marvel of the harbor. It sailed with the smallest breeze. The skilled seaman was willing to teach others to build their own marvelous boats, but few ever asked for his instructions. Some wanted to substitute their own ideas, while others simply asked for a ride in the seaman's boat. Some people plainly showed envy, while some faint-hearted builders gave up shortly after starting. But the few who really wanted to learn soon had their own marvelous boats. If I am deceiving myself, I want to know about it. You still believe that a change in circumstances will make you happy? How little you understand. Surround a bored man with exciting activities and he will soon be bored again. Give a frustrated man everything he demands and his frustration will remain to torture him. Only a profound change in the way we think can make us happy. I am utterly weary of asking so many baffling questions. Wonderful. Now you can listen to enlightening answers.